Grace and Emma, two ordinary mums from quiet British suburbs, juggling school runs, playdates and family life. But behind their friendly faces, they were secretly at the heart of a dangerous Class A drug network, using their everyday routines to hide a criminal empire growing right under everyone's noses. What pushed these trusted mothers to risk it all and fuel Britain's hidden drug trade? In a quiet suburb of Britain, everything looked just as it should. Rows of tidy houses lined the streets, gardens were well kept, and neighbors exchanged polite greetings. The kind of place where children rode their bikes freely, and community events brought everyone together. On the surface, it was peaceful and ordinary. A typical family-friendly neighborhood where life moved at a gentle pace. But beneath this calm exterior, something was stirring that no one could have expected. For months, local police had noticed a troubling increase in cases connected to Class A drugs, heroin, cocaine, and other dangerous substances. What puzzled them most was that the usual suspects, known dealers, gangs, and known criminals, were not behind the sudden rise. Instead, the patterns pointed in a completely different direction. The dealers weren't the typical figures lurking in dark alleyways or hanging around street corners. They were people no one would suspect. Mothers, ordinary women with school runs, playdates, and family dinners. These women lived what seemed to be normal lives. They took their kids to school, attended parent-teacher meetings, and organized community fundraisers. But behind closed doors, many were involved in something far more dangerous. They were running a secret operation, one that spread quietly across the suburbs, hidden in plain sight. Using the trust and respect they had earned in their communities, these mums managed to move Class A drugs without raising suspicion. The police realized that these women were cleverly using their everyday roles to cover their tracks. Their homes became secret hubs for drug storage and exchange. The suburban streets, once symbols of safety and family life, were now part of a shadowy network fueling a growing drug crisis. This discovery challenged everything police believed about crime and criminals. The people society trusted the most were secretly helping to fuel the Class A drug trade, and no one saw it coming. As the police dug deeper, they began to uncover a hidden network unlike anything they had seen before. It wasn't the usual gang with obvious signs of violence or intimidation. Instead, it was a carefully organized group of women who used their everyday lives as a cover. The network stretched across different suburbs, linking dozens of mums who knew how to keep secrets and avoid detection. Their operations were quiet but efficient, and they had created a system that allowed drugs to move through communities without raising alarms. These women communicated in subtle ways, often using coded language and passing messages during normal activities, school runs, grocery shopping, and neighborhood meetups. Their homes became meeting points where parcels were exchanged quickly and discreetly. What made this network so difficult to crack was the trust they built within their communities. Neighbors saw them as caring mothers, always busy with family and charity work, so no one thought twice when they saw these women meeting up or receiving delivery. The police realized that these moms had tapped into a secret advantage. By blending in with everyday suburban life, they avoided suspicion from both the public and law enforcement. Their children and family routines acted as a shield, making it harder for anyone to believe they were involved in serious criminal activity. Even more surprising was how the network had evolved into a business, with some women taking on roles as organizers, couriers, and coordinators, all while maintaining their normal appearances. The scale of the operation soon became clear. It wasn't just a handful of individuals. It was a widespread system involving dozens of people, all playing different parts. The drugs moved in small amounts to avoid attention, but reached multiple neighborhoods, feeding a growing demand. Investigators realized that this wasn't just a local problem, but part of a larger, well-organized trade that was being quietly controlled by these women. As the police followed the trail, they found more layers of secrecy, making it clear this network was far more sophisticated than anyone expected. What started as a few suspicious deliveries had turned into a sprawling web of deception, built on the faces of Britain's most unsuspected citizens. The mums. The investigation took a major turn when an unexpected tip arrived from someone living right in the heart of the community. A neighbor, who had long admired the quiet suburbs' charm, began noticing unusual activity at one particular house. Strange deliveries arrived late at night, often when the family was supposed to be asleep. Packages were brought in quickly, with no explanation, and people came and went under the cover of darkness. The neighbors' growing unease led them to contact the police, setting off a chain of events that would expose the network in a way nothing else had. Undercover officers were sent to observe the house, and what they found was shocking. The deliveries were small, carefully wrapped parcels that changed hands quickly, but the most disturbing part was how children were sometimes involved, used unknowingly as couriers to pass packages between adults. The mums had found a way to exploit their trusted roles in the community, hiding illegal activity within everyday family routines. School runs and playground visits became cover for drug exchanges, making the trade almost invisible. This discovery stunned the police. It was a new kind of operation, one that used family life as a shield. The drugs were passed through what looked like harmless interactions. Mums chatting at the school gate, swapping bags and parcels. The investigation revealed that the network had adapted to avoid detection by blending their activities into daily life. Even neighbors who thought they knew these women well had no idea what was happening right under their noses. The tip-off also highlighted how clever and careful these women were. They never left clear evidence or signs of illegal activity, and their children's presence made it harder for law enforcement to act quickly. This use of family as a cover created a dangerous blind spot for the police, who struggled to gather proof without causing harm to innocent children. With this insight, the investigation gained momentum. The police began piecing together the routes the drugs took, and the ways they were hidden in plain sight. What started as a quiet tip from a concerned neighbor soon revealed the hidden complexity and cruelty behind the suburban facade, showing just how deeply the Class A drug trade had become woven into everyday life. As the investigation progressed, it became clear that these mums were living double lives, unlike anything the police had imagined. By day, they were the picture of normality, taking their children to school, attending parent-teacher meetings, organizing bake sales and volunteering for local charities. They smiled at neighbors, helped with homework, and shared stories over coffee. Their lives appeared ordinary, even admirable, and no one suspected the darkness lurking beneath the surface. But when night fell, a very different reality took shape. These women transformed into key players in the dangerous world of Class A drugs. Behind closed doors, they coordinated shipments, handled payments, and passed drugs to dealers further down the line. Their knowledge of the community and ability to move without raising suspicion gave them a significant advantage over law enforcement. Unlike typical drug dealers, who often attract attention through violence or public dealings, these mums operated with stealth and precision. Their dual existence was carefully managed. Some handled the drugs themselves, while others arranged logistics or kept lookout during exchanges. Many were skilled at covering their tracks, using fake social media profiles, burner phones, and coded language to avoid detection. Their family roles helped shield them. Police hesitated to intervene aggressively because children were often nearby, complicating investigations. This ability to juggle two very different worlds made the network almost untouchable. The women's public personas gave them credibility, while their criminal activities were hidden behind the facade of motherhood. It was a shocking discovery that challenged long-held stereotypes about who was involved in the drug trade. The police and public alike were forced to reconsider their assumptions. More disturbingly, some mums seemed to believe they were protecting their families by earning extra money, even if it meant risking everything. Others were trapped by debts, coercion, or desperation. The mix of motives added a complex human element to the case, showing how difficult it was to untangle crime from survival. This duality created a tense, fragile balance. As the investigation closed in, the question remained: how long could these women maintain their secret lives before everything unraveled? Despite mounting evidence against the network, The police hit a frustrating wall, the community's unspoken code of silence. Neighbors who might have seen or heard something were unwilling to come forward. Fear, loyalty, and sometimes sympathy kept them quiet. The mums involved were often well-liked, respected members of their communities, making it even harder for others to believe they could be part of something so serious. This silence created a protective shield around the network, allowing it to continue operating beneath the surface. Police officers found themselves repeatedly frustrated by dead ends. Witnesses refused to talk, and even those with suspicions stayed silent. The mums were careful not to expose themselves, but the community's reluctance to speak was just as powerful a barrier. Some neighbors feared retaliation, while others simply didn't want to get involved in what they saw as police interference in their tight-knit neighborhood. This code of silence wasn't just about fear, it was also about loyalty. Many people in the area had grown up together, or had long-standing relationships, making it difficult to betray someone they considered a friend or neighbor. Others may have sympathized with the mums' situations, understanding that poverty, hardship, or desperation sometimes pushed people to desperate measures. This made the community complex and divided in its response to the growing drug problem. The police soon realized that breaking this silence was key to cracking the case. Traditional investigative methods weren't enough. They needed someone from inside the network, someone willing to risk everything to expose the truth. Without that insider help, the investigation risked stalling indefinitely. At the same time, the police were cautious. They knew that pushing too hard could alienate the community or put innocent people at risk. They had to find a way to build trust while gathering evidence. It was a delicate balance, and every step forward felt like walking on thin ice. The silence surrounding the network was a powerful reminder that crime often thrives, not just because of the criminals themselves, but because of the unspoken rules that protect them. Breaking those rules would be the only way to bring the network down. The investigation took a dramatic turn when, unexpectedly, one of the mums involved made a life-changing decision. Overwhelmed by guilt and fear, she chose to break the silence and secretly cooperate with the police. This woman, once a key player in the network, provided officers with detailed information about the group's operations that no outsider could have uncovered. Her bravery gave the investigation a new burst of energy and hope. She revealed how the network was structured, naming names and describing the roles each woman played, from couriers and stash house managers to the organizers who coordinated shipments. She explained how they communicated using coded messages and disguised drug packages within everyday items to avoid detection. Her inside knowledge exposed the hidden routes drugs took from suppliers to the streets, routes invisible to law enforcement until now. Her cooperation stunned the police. Suddenly, years of frustration and dead ends were replaced by clear leads and actionable intelligence. Armed with this new information, police began planning targeted raids. Carefully timed to catch the network in the act. These operations aimed not only to arrest key figures, but also to dismantle the carefully constructed system that had allowed the drug trade to flourish in the community. This informant's decision was risky. She knew that by betraying the network, she put herself and her family in danger. Yet her choice revealed the human side of the story, how fear and guilt could push even those deeply involved to seek a way out. Her cooperation showed that beneath the criminal activities were individuals caught in difficult circumstances, some desperate for a chance at redemption. The police now had a powerful tool to strike back against the network. The raids that followed shook the community to its core, catching many of the mums off guard and exposing the full extent of their involvement. But the informant's bravery also raised new questions about trust, loyalty, and how far people would go to protect themselves and those they cared about. Her decision marked a turning point, shining a light into the darkest corners of the secret world hidden behind the suburban facades. It was the moment when the quiet mum's dangerous game began to unravel. As the investigation progressed, a shocking truth emerged that no one saw coming. The police discovered that the entire network wasn't just a loose group of individuals acting independently. It was led by a highly respected mother who had managed to stay completely under the radar. She was not the person anyone suspected. This woman, admired by many in the community for her kindness and dedication to family, was the mastermind behind the entire operation. Her position in the community gave her an almost invisible shield. She volunteered at schools, organized charity events, and was known for helping neighbors in need. People trusted her implicitly, never imagining she could be orchestrating something so dangerous. This leader's ability to blend seamlessly into everyday life made it almost impossible for the police or anyone else to link her to the drug trade. Behind the scenes, however, she controlled the network with precision. She coordinated shipments, managed money, and kept communication tightly controlled. Her strategic mind kept the operation running smoothly, avoiding mistakes that could lead to detection. The mum who seemed the most innocent was actually the one pulling the strings, proving how carefully the entire network was designed. This revelation stunned investigators and the community alike. It challenged all assumptions about who could be involved in criminal activity and forced a reconsideration of what trust really meant. The idea that someone so deeply embedded in the social fabric was leading a drug empire was difficult for many to accept. For the police, it was both a breakthrough and a new challenge. Taking down the leader would require careful planning and evidence that could withstand intense scrutiny in court. Her community standing meant the case would attract public attention and fierce support from those who refused to believe the accusations. The discovery of the leader's identity marked a turning point in the investigation. It showed just how far the network had reached, and how clever these women were in hiding their true selves. The battle was no longer just about catching dealers, it was about exposing a carefully hidden world where trust and betrayal existed side by side. With the insider's information and the shocking revelation of the network's leader, the police were ready to take decisive action. They planned a daring and carefully orchestrated trap to catch the mums in the act. The operation involved staging a fake shipment of Class A drugs, a shipment that the network would believe was real. This allowed officers to observe the network's movements, identify key players, and gather solid evidence without putting innocent people at risk. The tension was high as the operation unfolded. Surveillance teams watched closely from hidden positions, tracking cars and monitoring communicants. Every detail had to be perfect. The mums were clever and cautious, so the police knew one mistake could blow the entire case wide open. Officers prepared for long hours of waiting, knowing this could be their best chance to dismantle the network once and for all. When the fake shipment arrived, the mums moved quickly. Packages were passed between hands with practiced ease, disguised as everyday items to avoid suspicion. Children were nearby, just as usual, making the scene appear harmless. The police watched silently, recording every move. The careful choreography of drug exchanges revealed how deeply ingrained these operations were in daily life. As the operation reached its climax, officers moved in to make arrests. The mums were caught off guard, but didn't resist. The surprise was overwhelming. They had believed their secret world was untouchable. The success of the trap was a major victory for the police, proving the network's existence beyond doubt and revealing the true scale of the operation. However, the operation also revealed just how far the mums' influence extended. Some tried to hide evidence or warn others, showing the network was still connected and active despite the arrests. The police realized that while the trap was a significant blow, the network's roots ran deep, and fully dismantling it would take more time and effort. The success of the operation sent shockwaves through the community. It exposed the dark secret beneath the calm suburban streets and proved that appearances could be dangerously deceiving. The battle to bring justice had taken a giant step forward, but the fight was far from over. The arrest sent shockwaves through the quiet suburb and beyond. Suddenly, the mums who had once been seen as pillars of the community were now at the center of a nationwide scandal. Headlines screamed about the secret drug network operating behind the facade of family life, shattering the image of safety and trust people had long taken for granted. Families were torn apart as loved ones faced criminal charges, and neighbors struggled to come to terms with the betrayal. The fallout was immediate and far-reaching. Some children were left confused and frightened, caught between love for their mothers and the reality of their crimes. Schools and local organizations faced difficult questions about how such an operation could exist unnoticed for so long. The community's sense of security was deeply shaken, with many wondering if they had truly known their neighbors at all. Friendships dissolved as suspicion spread like wildfire. Those once close found themselves doubting everyone, fearful that anyone could be involved or hiding secrets. The scandal highlighted how easily trust could be broken, and how deception had been woven into the fabric of everyday life. The mums' double lives had created cracks in the community that would take years to repair. But while many of the arrested women faced court trials and prison sentences, others quietly disappeared from public view. Rumors spread that some had fled or gone into hiding, suggesting that the network was not completely destroyed. The police were left wondering how many more women were involved. How many more faces behind closed doors hid similar secrets? The case also raised uncomfortable questions about the reasons behind the mums' involvement in crime. It became clear that for some, desperation, poverty, and lack of support had played a part. The story was not just about criminals, but about broken lives, and a society struggling to cope with its most vulnerable. As the dust settled, the community faced a long road to healing. The scandal exposed not only the dark underbelly of the drug trade, but also the fragility of trust and the complexity of human choices. The quiet suburb would never be the same again. In the weeks and months following the arrests, a deeper and more unsettling truth began to emerge. The story was no longer just about crime and punishment. It was about why so many mums had become involved in the dangerous world of Class A drugs in the first place. Investigators, social workers, and journalists started to uncover the pressures these women faced: poverty, loneliness, and desperation that pushed them toward choices they might never have imagined. Many of the mums came from difficult backgrounds or were struggling to provide for their families. Some were trapped in cycles of debt, unable to find steady work or support. Others faced isolation, with little help from partners or social services. For some, involvement in the drug trade was seen as a way to survive, to keep food on the table or pay bills when nothing else worked. The line between victim and criminal blurred, revealing a more complicated picture than headlines suggested. This hidden side of the story made people question how society dealt with those at the margins. Were these women simply criminal, or were they caught in a broken system that failed to support them? The answer wasn't clear, but it sparked conversations about poverty, mental health, and the social safety nets that might have prevented this crisis. At the same time, the police and community groups worked to rebuild trust and find ways to prevent similar networks from forming again. Programs were introduced to support vulnerable families, aiming to stop desperation from turning into crime. The scandal served as a warning, one that showed how even the most unlikely people could become part of something